I've never understood it, but for some reason tuna fish is, everyone loves tuna fish, right? And as we get more and more population, we want more and more tuna fish. But thank goodness the tuna fish know that, so they know there's the laws of supply and demand, so they keep reproducing themselves to fit the supply and demand, right? Why? They don't? You see, they didn't read Adam Smith. Yeah, in 1776 they must have been doing something else on the Wealth of Nations. No, as a matter of fact, nothing in nature reproduces according to Mr. Smith's or our capitalist supply and demand. Nothing. It has its own rhythm. They all have their own rhythm, their own way of regenerating. And if we don't understand a lot sooner than later that our entire economic system has to be a subset of ecological laws, and we can't have this sort of system that is completely disembedded from this regeneration, again, that is this big paradigm shift. We can talk about the specifics, the litigation, everything else, but unless we make these paradigm shifts and begin to really think about this the way I'm talking about, I don't think we're going to get where we need to go here. So we need to, that's true with soil, it's true with water, right? With seeds, we know diversity is the way. And it's so interesting, we always talk about right now, especially with the, with our churlish president and his white supremacy followers, how important diversity is for all of us. I mean, look at this audience, incredibly diverse, wonderfully diverse, right? But it's just the same with seeds, just the same with nature. That diversity is our strength. That's what gives us, if you have a corn blight and you only have one type of corn, that wipes out your whole crop. That did wipe out our whole crop in the 1970s, for those who are familiar with that history. We had to get corn from South America for our corn crop to survive. We'd so monocultured it. So diversity equals strength. Diversity is not deficiency. Whether that be in politics, whether you're talking about immigration, whether you're talking about people, never let them say diversity equals deficiency or difference equals deficiency. Diversity equals strength. Another one of those sort of pillar ideas. And we know that we have to completely disband the industrial factory system, and to the extent that we have animals, they have to be back on the land, and they have to be done in a we used to be called husbandry, which has to be in a system that works. And of course, our pollinators, obviously, we have to stop the use of our biocides. So I call this the organic and beyond future. And what do I mean by organic and beyond? Organic is the floor for the future. We believe, CFS, that organic should be the floor of all American agriculture. It's the most rapidly growing sector in American agriculture right now. It's a multi-billion dollar industry, but it's just the floor. It tells you what not to do. So above that, we want to build a house, a future of food that is local, that's appropriate in scale, that's humane, how deeply I feel that, that's biodiverse, and that's socially just. And that will also make it climate friendly, all of those things. So local, appropriate scale, biodiverse, humane, and socially just. And right now I'm working with a number of foundations and a number of things to try and build those rules together, create new labels, new market incentives, new policy incentives to make that happen. But I think behind it all has to be this understanding that in each of us, including me, every day, psychologically, spiritually, personally, as we concern ourselves with our health and the health of the planet, the health of our children, we also realize that we need to nurture those consciousness and psychological and spiritual aspects of ourselves that say, efficiency is fine for that, but I want to bring love and empathy into my life and my feeling about the planet and my circle of empathy. Not just, my circle of empathy isn't just for my kids, isn't just for my family. It includes the animals that are suffering, the people that are suffering, the forests that are cutting down. It's painful, but I'm big enough to say that, because unless I have that, unless I fall in love and feel that empathy, I'm not going to do much about it. We protect that which we love. Unless you widen that circle of love, you aren't going to protect those things. You won't. You'll be like women out there, you'll be like, or men too, men will be tigers, will be tigresses to defend your kids, which is great. But that's not good enough right now, not for the world we live in. And we have to begin to look at each other, as difficult as it is, as we looked at each other as children often, and not look at each other as competitors, fighting for that last grant, fighting for the promotion, fighting for tenure, just fighting for a job. We have to begin to come together, restore things like unions and cooperatives, and certainly food cooperatives that make that happen. And then ultimately, we have to have the courage, all of us together, to redefine progress and say progress does not lie in that direction of industrial food, of industrial cruelty, of the ethic of extermination. It lies in the organic and beyond future, based in love and empathy, based in respect, based in cooperation, and based in the fact that each of us every day takes on the responsibility for ourselves, for our communities, for our children, the planet, that we are creators and not consumers. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have time for some questions, and you can ask. You don't have to. You can ask about GMOs, anything, or organic, anything you want. Yes, right here in the front row. That's a good question. Thank you for the water. www. I guess you knew that. Center for Food Safety, all one word. centerforfoodsafety.org. www.centerforfoodsafety.org. And everything I've talked about as far as GMOs, as far as organic, as far as our litigations, as far as our seed-saving network, as far as our soil program and our climate program, they're all there, including virtually anything I discussed will be on that website. You'll be able to catch up. And by the way, you can become a member of CFS like you can become a participant in this conference for free. We do not charge for membership. And that way you'll get our updates, you'll get our alerts. We do not share our list with anyone. You will not suddenly find yourself, having Walmart suddenly on your, Gmail. We do not sell it. We do not loan it. So without your permission, we will never use your name. So feel free, please get on it. Please become CFS members, and you can communicate with me as well over that. Other questions? In the back.
Troops used during World War II when they were weak from all the food that was being processed and everything and sent to them, that they asked the American public to create victory gardens and sent that food to them. I think we need today to be able to do that and understand that our children are our soldiers, and we need to do that for them. And then that way we can have a whole community doing the things that we should do and be producers instead of consumers.
That's a great point. As a matter of fact, about too many years ago to mention, Jeremy Rifkin, a great comrade of mine for many, many years, a wonderful writer, and on these issues, got me involved in genetic engineering in the middle 80s. He and I thought of starting a new victory garden thing even in the 80s. It's a great idea. You know the #1 hobby in America? Gardening. And one of the failures of the Center for Food Safety, my organization, and any other I know of, is that we don't effectively organize the garden clubs and the garden communities in the way that you're suggesting, which I think would be a phenomenal idea. And my wife is a master gardener. I know the difference it makes for you. Even if you have a very small area, it can make a really big difference. So thank you for that suggestion. It's a great suggestion. It's something I want to keep working on. So anybody else wants to keep working, let's talk about that. The second part of your thing is something that I really like as well, because this idea of being a creator, I restricted in my talk here, I restricted it to being a creator in the manner and the food that you grow, the food, but it's actually bigger than that. Consumer isn't just about your food choices. We become consumers in almost everything. So don't just listen to music, make music. Don't just read poetry, write poetry. You don't have to be a professional, just write it, right? Don't just look on the Discovery Channel, get out into nature. Actually walk, experience nature. get to know the trees, get to know your backyard, fall in love with that part of it. And, you know, don't just read romance novels. You know where I'm going with that. Other questions? Here in the front.
First, I want to thank you because out of all the speakers, you have really brought to me, especially, a message of hope. And the hope is in your pillars and our ability to see ourselves as consumers. And when we begin to look at ourselves and our actions throughout the day and what we eat and what we buy, that's the beginning. Great what you're doing. Now, I want to say that also the next upcoming generation, despite everything that's going on, and it's almost like a genocide what's going on, but you have brought a message of hope. And talking about the gardens, I was just asked to be a nature coordinator for preschool. And my goal, I feel, the next upcoming young generation, we have to grab them and get them grounded back into the earth and to the animals and also to gardening, because the first thing I asked is, do you have room at your school for a garden? Because that's where I want to get them out first, in the garden, growing, teaching them about seeds. We should be doing this for all our children, our grandchildren, because if we don't do it, they are going to get lost in cyberspace, and they're going to get so caught up in this matrix of lies. And so that's how I feel. I feel getting to the children, and you've helped me a great deal, because I've always been trying to put my finger on what's really going on. I know what's going on, but now I can see the bigger picture, along with the help of this gentleman who just spoke about the gardens. He's tremendous. He has tremendous insight into where it all begins and how we change it. So,
well, thank you. Thank you very much. And and one of my things you can get online. It's called this one is called Cold Evil, and you'll see. I go into a much larger frame than I did today, but I call it techno cocooning. You know, this cold evil system, what it loves to do is it catches you in a techno cocoon, where you're never outside of technology mediating your experience with anything. And these kids today, whether it be the phone, whether it be, you know, I mean, in the old days, if somebody were walk down the street like screaming, you'd assume that they needed, you know, some help. Now it's just somebody talking, you know. I mean, I remember the first few times I was very disoriented. The first time I saw it, what's the matter with that person? Oh, I see, you know. But we're so surrounded. I mean, the time that these children are spending in front of screens is just terrible. When you add, you know, television and you add the internet and all those games, I mean, you're talking about 10 hours a day. Plus, quite now, because our good friend Robert Gates, who knows nothing about agriculture and nothing about human psychology, he wants to put these things even in preschools and in times when they're developing brain. You know, so the first time you see a duck is on a thing that says 3 ducks, press the number 3, versus actually seeing a duck. Now, what we've done in Hawaii, through my office in Hawaii, we have a huge school garden program. Please look that up. We, through our good friend Nancy Redfeather, I think we're up to about 150 school gardens in the state of Hawaii, and now we're moving that into California. But I wish I had more expertise on this, but my staff and these people do. They have ways to do it, teaching curricula, all sorts of ways to do that. Of course, it's centered in soil and seed. And that's really important because in the techno, you know, society this cold evil society we're talking about, people's normal relationship to all food is where? The supermarket, fast food restaurant, that's the phenomenological horizon where people meet food, where most of us meet food, right? We have to, just as you say, so you said so well, we have to move that down to the soil and the seed and the essentials. That's the job. That's the educational job we have to do. They have to understand the essentials, work with it, nothing feels better than really good soil. It's not dirt. Soil, as you all know, is just unbelievable. It's just phenomenal. And kids love seeds. When I was traveling in Ethiopia about 6 years ago, every grammar school and every high school has mandatory composting as a mandatory course and seed identification. This is Ethiopia. We should be doing the same thing. And you're right, getting kids as early as possible to experience that, as well as outdoor labs, anything that gets them to nature. Again, as they grow up, they will only protect that which they love. And if that happens to be nothing but, you know, the iPhone or the Droid, and then we've lost them in cyberspace, as you said so well. One last question? Comment? Over here.
We live in a society now, like you explained, that has really warped ideas. I mean, we think of somebody as being successful as somebody who was able to take our president, for example. He's a very successful businessman. But people don't look at how he became successful. And then millions of people, thousands of people he put out of work just to profit for himself. I mean, we make people our idols because they're successful, but we don't look at how they became successful. And we have all these changes going on. You're saying that, you know, we're going to change things, and things are starting to change. But have we come too far? Is there going to be a point where we're finally going to save the water, but it's too late to save the water because there's no water left to save? I mean, where is that cutoff point? When are we going to get to that point? I mean, there's a lot of things we can do to change the way people think about who's successful and who's not. But that takes time. It takes 20, 30, 40 years to change people's ideas. It takes a whole generation. Do we have that much time left for some of these things before the bees are all gone, before the water's gone? Is there still time?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I was brought up in Jamaica, Queens. My Catholic school, St. Elizabeth's, was only 3 blocks towards Hillside Boulevard from the Trump house. My brother's paper route of the Long Island Press that was then still being printed was the Trump folks. Yeah, it would always peeves me off as people like Trump, who are born on third base, think it's such a great deal that they got home, where most people aren't even in the stadium. But you're right. How do we redefine successful? What does it mean to be successful psychologically? What does it mean to be successful as a person? What does that actually mean? And it's got to be based in relationship. There's one thing that I should have emphasized more in my talk, is that it's all about relationship. The ethic of extermination is not about relationship. Efficiency is not about relationship. Competition is the end of relationship. Just try it in your marriage or your romantic life or as a parent. Try to be competitive with your kids and see how relational that is, or with your spouse. Just try it. It won't work. Trust me, right? And, they will use that against you if you say, I really feel horrible for these 10 billion animals. Well, that's the only way we can efficiently use them. Well, that's the only way we can be competitive with other people. They'll use that language to stop relationship. There's only healing through relationship. That's the only kind of healing we have, is through relationship. And all these cold, evil things, the distancing, the psychological, emotional distancing from these horrors, is a way of not being in relation. So I should have emphasized that more. Now to your other more difficult part of your question. So I have a couple of answers to it. Neither is probably satisfactory. But we know, first of all, it's going to end anyway, right? So by the time Barron Trump is his father's age, there will be no affordable coal, gas, all that whole energy will be gone, and we'll be way past peak herbicides, etc. They won't work anymore. Nature will have won in all those ways, right? So we're going to have to do the change anyway. Now, whether it's a horrifyingly hard landing with millions dying and who knows what else is going to be going on, and sort of fascism coming because of all this, these are all difficult things. But nature will bat last. But, a couple things, there's a difference between optimism and hope. Optimism for me is, I'm optimistic that there is going to be a Super Bowl tonight. Unless some catastrophe intervenes, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen and start around 6:30. Right? I hate the New England Patriots, so I'm hopeful they lose. No one, and I've asked this at many audiences, no history, I've never seen a single article, and you can Google for hours, that predicted the Berlin Wall was going to come down. No one was optimistic that was going to happen in their lifetime. No one. I don't know a single person. Look it up. No one. The most sophisticated professors on Sovietology, and no. But it did. It did come down. No one predicted not only would Nelson Mandela come out of prison, but he would actually run South Africa, and then instead of being vengeful, would start reconciliation councils all across the country to reconcile the white minority with the new black majority and government leadership. No one predicted that. I told you about me not being able to predict that Exxon would have all these organic products in it, and that I'd be seeing non-GMO on pet food on television. I would not have been optimistic. So hope, I would never have dreamed in my lifetime that we'd have a black president. Not optimistic at all about that. Would you have been optimistic? No. You could be hopeful. I'm very hopeful that we have a woman president pretty soon. Maybe not the one that ran, but we won't get into that. So remember the difference between optimism and hope, right? Be hopeful. Fill your life with, just because you're not optimistic, don't abandon your hopefulness, because that's going to give you energy. It's going to give you, I mean, I've been doing this work for lots of years. I'm not burned out at all, because I remain hopeful, because I've seen these things happen. And my brother Mark, I warned you from the beginning, you know, I told you about him saying good morning is an unproven hypothesis. But Mark had my beloved brother had a much more, I think, hopeful expression. Do people know what bovine growth hormone is? Does that ring a bell with anybody here? So this is, I worked on a dairy farm out in Columbia County, New York for a while. And, you know, it's hard to work on a dairy farm with 36 farms without really getting to love the cows. I'm not saying I love the chickens. That's a whole different thing. You guys, if you love chickens out there, talk to me later. Help me. But the cows, absolutely. And so when Monsanto came out with this product in the middle 1980s, we litigated, we sued them, and we lost. So I knew that they were going to be putting these steroids in these cows. These cows were going to develop laminitis, mastitis, and it was going to be horrible suffering for literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of cows in this country. And I called my brother, and he said, Andy, it sounded like you wanted to win. And I said, yeah, of course I wanted to win. He said, that's not your job. You're not required to be successful. You're required to be faithful. So everybody in this room, whatever the issue that is your primary issue, whether it be this food issue, whether it be a health issue, whether it be a vaccine issue, no matter what it looks like, don't worry about being successful at the end of the day. That is above our pay scale. You know what you've seen as a considering, carefully, intuitive and thinking and feeling adult. You've seen the evidence and you say, I believe this is wrong. Be faithful to that. Do what you can. Do the very, very best you can, and then be at peace with yourself. So I don't know. I can't answer this gentleman's question necessarily whether it's over or not. I don't know. But I can tell you that the only way we're going to make it happen is by staying faithful to what we believe. Do never compromise on your goals. Compromise on strategy, but never on your goals, never on your beliefs, and stay faithful to that. And remember, it's not about victory. It's acting in a manner that merits victory. You can't assure victory with a bad judge, with a Republican Congress, with an ag committee at a state level that's against you. But you can't. One thing you can control is being faithful to your ideals, faithful to what you believe, and acting in a manner that merits victory. And stay hopeful. Thank you.